You might have heard us there just discussing the migration problems and woes for your government. Your colleague Robert Jenrick accused this morning of having gone rogue, the disquiet within the party extending right up into the cabinet. Do you agree with him that he's been blocked from doing what he needs to do for the last year, as Suella Braverman's also been claiming?
Well, we all recognise in Cabinet we need to get the numbers down. The numbers are too high. That's why when I was Health Secretary we launched, the first government ever to launch a long-term workforce plan for the NHS, as you were just talking about in terms of doctors. We need to grow more domestically. Of course that takes time to train a doctor, but we've got a workforce plan for the NHS to double the number of doctors that we're training, but also to look at the wider skills mix, how we better use our pharmacists, how we better use our multiple disciplines teams within NHS, how we use technology. So a huge amount of work going in there. We've already taken action in terms of student dependence. Closing that route will reduce the number by 150,000. As Health Secretary, I increased the immigration surcharge so that those coming in are paying more to contribute to the NHS. But all of those things are steps we've taken. Clearly we need to do more. I fully support the Home Secretary in taking tough action to bring those numbers down, but there are things we have been doing already, and I've given a few examples in terms of my role as Health Secretary before.
Yeah, that focusing very much on care workers and the medical part of it all. But I suppose there are lots of different solutions that are floating around. Suella Braverman wants there to be a cap. I think there was some suggestion from Labour that could be around 200,000. They also want to ban the 20% rule, where foreigners are being paid less than British workers. And Boris Johnson has said he wants to see the salary threshold go up so that British workers aren't being undercut. Why aren't any of these options being put in place? What's the delay? This has been 13 years of Conservative government.
Well, I've just given some examples where rules have been tightened up, but also you asked whether I support the Home Secretary in taking tougher action, and absolutely I do. But there's other things we're doing in government, and one of the things I'm announcing today is about the importance of nature, the importance of people being able to access nature, the launch of a new national park. So I hope, alongside the very important issue of immigration, and I absolutely accept numbers are too high, we need to bring them down, and I support the Home Secretary in looking at various options to do so. I think it's also important to look at some of the other things that really matter to people, and our natural landscape, how we restore nature, how we give people access to nature is really important. And the £25 million they were announcing today to restore 34 habitats is really important. Having disadvantaged children able to access nature with a scheme that we're launching and continuing today. The 2 new community forests in Tees Valley and South Derbyshire will be hugely welcomed in those areas. And it's important that we also look at how we're restoring nature, how we're connecting people to nature, and a really positive set of announcements today in that space too.
I totally agree with you, Steve, on that. We talk about the machinations of politics and whatever, and we could go on forever talking about all these things that we do know about. What we don't know about is what you in your new job as Secretary of State for the Environment is doing there. You're trying to make that connection, and ahead of COP28, I think the more people understand the environment around them, and they love the environment around them, and they want to take care of the environment around them, the better that is for understanding the planet in which we live. But that requires access. And one of the things you're doing here is giving people access now. Can I say to you, since a lot of this land is owned by farmers, do you then get into conversations with farmers and say, look, don't fear the public, or cooperate with the public, and this can all be better for all of us?
No, it's a really important point, and it's about responsible access, and it's also about ensuring that we raise productivity on farms, we take our food security seriously, and we work really constructively with our farmers and landowners. The scheme I was looking at, for example, in Kent, that was restoring chalk streams, really important natural resource, was being done in collaboration, in cooperation with local farmers. And there's a lot we can do to support the farming community, the fishing community, community, because they're really the backbone of our country, and do so in a way that is sustainable for nature too. Because I know for many people watching this, they care deeply about the environment. And in fact, during COVID, we really saw people re-engage quite often with the environment. Going for those walks, spending time in parks, spending time in green spaces was a really important part of their health and well-being as well. And that's why having an additional national park, there were 270,000 visits even to national parks last year. So having an additional park, having more community forests, making it easier for people to access that, but doing it in a way that is responsible, addresses some of the concerns of landowners, is really important.
Okay. And look, you're talking about the importance of connecting with nature. We are all agreed with that. What about our waterways, our seas and our rivers filled with sewerage? And we did an interview just last week with Feargal Sharkey, who represents Surfers Against Sewerage, and it was brought to our attention that our brand new Environment Secretary is married to an executive in Anglia Water, and it strikes us as a huge conflict of interest. I mean, let's just listen to how Feargal broke that news to us last week.
We have a new Secretary of State for the Environment as of last week, Steve Barclay, and here's an opportunity for Steve Barclay to step up to the plate and stop delivering. Now, I'm sure there's no real connection, but as it transpires, Steve Barclay is married to a senior executive of one of the larger water companies.
So how do you answer that? That's a huge conflict of interest, isn't it?
Well, I think most people realise in the 21st century women are entitled to their own careers, and spouses
it's irrelevant whether
are
she's male or
entitled to
female,
their own
she's
careers.
your
And of course,
partner.
the propriety and ethics, these things are all disclosed. Propriety and ethics have looked at that, and they sort of have cleared all that. So everything has been looked at, everything's transparent. But I want to take a very tough line in terms of the water companies. That's why we put in place unlimited fines. We've got over 90% of sewage overflows now being monitored. By the end of the year, that will be 100%. That's in marked contrast to what the Labour administration has done in Wales, where the majority of sewage overflows are not monitored. The same in Scotland, the majority of them are not monitored. So we've been much more transparent. In 2010, only 7% of sewage overflows were monitored. By the end of this year, it will be 100%. So we can crack down really hard on any water company that is releasing sewage unlawfully. We've got unlimited fines in place. The Environment Agency has got the biggest criminal investigation into water companies, and I've been very clear with them to take a tough line. So we've got the transparency, we've got the monitoring in place, and that's really in contrast to what we've seen from Labour in Wales and the SNP in Scotland, where they don't have that level of transparency. And it's the transparency that allows us to then take the legal action where breaches occur.
OK, Secretary of State for the Environment, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for answering that, Steve Barclay.